the echo, and the voice. I can be left in peace with my loved ones now, alone in solitude. I was married for 10 years, had 2 children, a boy and a girl. I did love them immensely. All was well for half of those 10 years, until a day came that I made a decision that changed my life for the years to come. I was sorting out my emails on my computer in my study, deleting spam mail and reading the important ones, when my gaze met an ad that read, "Chat with new ladies live." I had looked at this particular ad for 30 seconds before I resolved to delete junk mail, and just as I was ready to click the close button, a soothing, seductive voice that sounded like a woman's whispered in my ear. The voice said to me, "It's better for you if you click that ad. Those women will never grow old and always be with you." The voice's words were too tempting to ignore, so I went through it. I clicked the ad for the site. One small sample won't hurt, right? And besides, it's not cheating if I were to actually meet these women in person. The ad brought me to a cam girl website, and right away I noticed the homepage was littered with images of naked and half-naked ladies. My mind started to become animalistic as I scanned the thumbnails of each live feed, my mouth watering like a ravenous beast about to catch its prey. The raunchy images alone aroused me, and excitedly I pondered which woman I should meet first. I made my decision, and clicked on the thumbnail of a one Candy Cathy, and was put in the middle of a live striptease, and I began to make myself ready for sensual succulence. Her live show ended after I had been there for 10 minutes. It was exquisite, but alas, I needed more. I had to find that high once again, to feel that angelic warmth called to me, and I had to have it. Therefore, I deemed a hop from live feed to live feed, and then I elected to visit the many famous pornography sites. I made certain to acquire my fill, whenever I could, when my wife was at work or asleep, and when my children were at school and in bed. I felt one with these women. This was my virtual brothel, and I soaked in as much sensual pleasure that I could. Nearly a month passed, and my wife eventually caught on to my drastic shift in behavior. I knew it would happen eventually, and well, I had been beginning to feel comatose to it, and resolved to come clean to her today when it came time to talk. But the ladies always called to me, their piercing gaze beckoning me to them. My wife walked into my study, softly putting her hands on my shoulders, and asked me, in that sweet voice of hers, "My love, are you well?" I turned my head to the right to meet her eyes, putting down my book on my desk, and replied with, "I'm fine, dear. Why do you ask?" She then frowned and put on a concerning tone, responding as thus, "I'm worried about you, hon. You've been spending so much time on your computer and phone, rarely paying me or the children any attention. Something in you has broken." Her words were gut-wrenching. She was right, and I needed to make things right this moment. I was about to open my mouth to come clean until the same seductive voice whispered in my ear once again, "She does not love you anymore. This bitch wants to prevent you from obtaining the ultimate high and real happiness. She will grow old and may leave you. Your children will die and learn to despise you. But the women I have shown you will never betray you. You don't need your family any longer. Darling, are you going to say anything?" The whore's words snapped me back to the present time, and I met her eyes and stood up from my chair. Grinning and placing my left hand on this woman's cheek, I eased her worries. "All is in order, my love. I've just had a lot on my mind, and work's been rough lately. She smiles and tells me she loves me as she turns to walk out of my study. I sit here now, writing this in my journal, in my study. I knew what I had to do to maintain my nirvana. The voice told me to be rid of my family. So I took a blade to their throats and then chopped them up into pieces. To you who are reading this, I hope you can understand why I did this, and why it was imperative that I had to claim what is mine. Blood seems to work just as well as ink. Why waste time finding a pen when I can use one of my wife's fingers? There's something sentimental about writing with my wife's blood. I must get back to that beautiful virtual brothel. The ladies back in my presence. Greetings, everybody. I hope you're all doing well, and I do hope you all enjoyed this story. This one was of my own design, and writing it brought me back to a pretty dark place in my life, but it was therapeutic for me to write it. Please feel free to let me know what you thought of it in the comments section below. I know this must hit home for a lot of you for what it encompasses. And I hope this time my audio sounds better. Everything, music isn't as loud. I'm still getting used to this narration thing on YouTube. It's been a long time since I've done anything on YouTube. Anything at all with this. So anyway, if you did enjoy the story, please tell your friends, tell the neighbor down the street, tell that person you see as you walk to work, and just hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you do not miss an update. And if you have any stories that you wish me to read of yours, horrifying or sci-fi with thrilling, true, fictional, feel free to send them to me in the email I shall put in the description below and in the pinned comment. So, I leave with that. And keep in mind, in the dark, when you think you're alone, you're not. I'm there in the shadows, waiting. The 17-year-old girl ceased running into the forest from the hellish family she had escaped the shackles of, to rest for a short time. As she started to regain her breath, her phone rang. The young lady pulled her cell phone out of her left pocket and put on a disgusted expression when she looked and saw that it was indeed her mother. The scorned teenager pressed the red button and turned off her phone, determined to never talk to any of those despicable people again. With that out of the way, the girl began to walk deeper into the now darkening forest. The daylight was beginning to fade, and she felt the urge to become frantic, thinking of how she would construct a means for shelter and warmth. The timid child had been wandering in the dark of the woods for nearly 3 hours, resisting the urge to scream in terror at all the little creaks of a branch in the low wind, or the eerie hoot of an owl glaring at her as she passed by. Her hope began to wane, and she was ready to break down and cry, until she looked straight ahead and spotted several lights, glowing faintly in the distance, just beyond an entanglement of trees and bushes. This, now hopeful young woman, grinned when she also heard voices, some of it sounding like singing, originating from the same direction. The girl started to walk slowly toward the lights and voices, remaining still and quiet behind the bushes. The girl gazed upon the sight with amazement. The lights and voices were, in fact, people, an entire village filled with the singing of joyous women and children, the merry laughter of men drinking at what looked to be a tavern, and the aroma of freshly prepared meat in the air. The oddest detail about this village was the architecture and the apparel of the townsfolk. None of it appeared to belong in the year 2018, more like 18th century clothing and architecture. Dumbfounded, the curious girl wondered, these people look so joyful. Would they take me if I asked to join their community? She then realized that her clothing and phone may cause her to draw unwanted attention in this gleeful society. She became distraught, unsure of what she would do to resolve this dilemma. She loathed the idea of returning to that prison of a home. The scar on her right cheek, made by her father's bowie knife, reminded her of that. The forest did not seem any more welcoming, especially at night. Conflicted and bitter, the troubled youth elected to simply sit behind the bushes, soaking in the pleasant sounds of singing and the laughter of children, until her vision grew black and sleep took her hostage. The girl's eyes slowly opened to the sun overhead and a golden retriever licking her face. She giggled slightly and sat up as she began to pet the dog, but stopped abruptly when she saw a boy standing over her, giving her a perplexing stare. Thanks for finding my dog. Who are you, and why are you wearing those strange clothes?" She replied, blushing. "My name is Lisa, and I ran away from home, from my family." The boy raised an eyebrow and inquired, "Why?" "Because my parents and little brother would beat me daily, and—" Lisa trailed off and turned her gaze toward the ground. "I'd rather not say anything more about it." The boy frowned and quickly apologized for prying into her affairs, before offering his hand to help her up off the ground. Lisa smiled and took his hand, pulling herself to her feet, stretching her arms, letting the grogginess fall from her body. She took a moment to gather herself and found her eyes meeting his. The boy's eyes are a shade of green to blue, and his demeanor seemed pleasant. His hair is dark brown, shoulder length. She figured him to be close to her age. The boy beamed a smile at her, and holding out his hand, he introduced himself. "My name is Ethan Thatcher." "Good to meet you, Ethan," shaking his hand as she blushed a hard red and smiled back. "Would you like to come back to my house? My mother has some clothes that might fit you. You will draw a lot of attention with those clothes, and you are the first outsider to arrive in our village." Lisa thought gingerly about taking Ethan's offer. She did not want to go back to those trolls for parents, and she did long to have a safe and happy home again. To know she would be able to live her life as she saw fit, without cruelty and ridicule. Alas, if she did accept his offer, Lisa may never see the outside world again. With that realization, she perked up and gleefully accepted his proposal. "Certainly, I would love to come back with you. And you're right about my attire. The last thing I want is to cause an upset in your little village." Ethan, still smiling, nodded and said, with a touch of enthusiasm, "Splendid! Our house is on the other side of the village, just on the edge past the orange tree." The odd fellow beckoned Lisa to follow him, and so she did, while thinking, "The orange tree? Why do they have only one tree that grows oranges?" Ethan called his dog over to him, and the two of them began walking around the village. Entering the village, the two of them thought it best to walk around it, behind various houses, taverns, bakeries, and there were even a few brothels as well. The mysterious village formed a perfect circle around the orange tree, which Lisa caught a glimpse of as Ethan led her to his house. The tree is enormous, close to the size of the White House, height-wise, that is. Its leaves are greener than the grass that surrounds the village, appearing to be a brighter shade of green than she had ever laid her eyes on. It was as if the plant life in and around this village appeared to be more alive and healthier than what one would see in their own backyard. She took note of one perplexing detail. She saw no one picking any oranges from it. Not one person had even looked at the wooden giant other than herself. "Okay, we're clear to keep moving. Our house is just ahead of here. I can see it," Ethan whispered, breaking the trance that had overtaken Lisa. "All right, let's get moving then." Ethan grinned and they continued onward to their destination. Ethan brought Lisa to the back of his house, most likely to sneak her inside before putting his parents in a state of shock, while the strange young lady still wore her modern-day clothing. "Remain quiet and stay close to me." Ethan approached the door, taking great care not to cause the steps to creak. Then, slowly turning the doorknob, he opened it cautiously. Lisa waited at the bottom of the steps as Ethan scanned just inside the doorway and down the hall. Lisa still had that tree lingering within her mind. Ethan turned to look at her, pressed a finger to his lips, and motioned for her to follow him inside. The two crept as quietly as possible, turning right down the hallway until they came to an empty room. "This is my room. Wait here until I find you some clothes." Lisa nodded in agreement and walked into his room. Taking a seat on his bed, Ethan shut the door behind him, and then, when she heard his footsteps fade, Lisa heard nothing but the sound of her own heartbeat. The interior of the house also had the likeness of something out of the 18th century colonial America period. This village and its people were an oddity in the full definition of the word. Lisa was studying Ethan's room closely, taking note of the plain wooden walls lacking paint, the simple bed she sat on, and glancing at the single bookshelf sitting next to the head of his bed, a window to the right, when she heard footsteps growing closer to the door. She grew tense, hoping the footsteps belonged to Ethan, not his parents. It had felt like an hour since Ethan left her alone in his room, so she was curious as to why he took such a long time, and what kind of clothing he would bring her. Moments passed since hearing the footsteps, and the door opened, revealing Ethan holding a blue dress over his right arm, his dog sitting to the left of him, panting and staring at Lisa. "This dress belonged to my mother when she was your age. It should fit comfortably on you." Ethan blushed hard while he handed her the dress. Smiling, Lisa replied, "Thank you. It's beautiful." She took the dress from Ethan and examined it, admiring the white buttons along the chest area and the white lace collar at the top. The dress is a heavy shade of blue, simple yet elegant in texture and design. It was crafted from silk and bore several strange symbols across the surface of the dress. Ethan still stood in the doorway when Lisa looked up at him and said, "If you would please give me some privacy." "Oh, of course. I beg your pardon." Ethan blushed as he closed the door behind him. Lisa let out a soft giggle and shook her head before commencing with putting on the dress. 10 minutes later, Lisa opened the door, finding Ethan and his dog waiting outside for her. "It feels amazing. I love it," she said, whispering as to not disturb Ethan's parents. Ethan was in awe at how beautiful she looked, and so he blushed a beet red when he uttered, "You look amazing." Lisa blushed and smiled at him, before Ethan gathered himself and said, "Well, time to meet my mother and father. Let me do the talking. I can handle my parents. They are actually kind people once they warm up to you." Lisa nodded, and then at that they headed towards the kitchen, where his mother and father were waiting for him, to sit and break fast with them. Crossing the threshold of the kitchen, Ethan motioned for Lisa to come next to him as he said, "Mother, Father, this is Lisa." Ethan's father set the book down he had been reading on the table, and his mother turned to face him
Just as she was about to set the table, both stared at the foreign girl, eyes widening and jaws agape. It had been a week since she had stumbled upon this village and met Ethan and his parents. His parents had grown fond and sympathetic of Lisa after Ethan explained to them that she was seeking asylum from her barbaric family. He needed not to say any more, and so they began treating her as their own. Even the villagers took a liking to her, as she started to gradually grow accustomed to their way of life. Still, that strange tree kept entering her mind. She longed to take an orange from it and taste of it. The fruit looked delicious, and she yearned to find out what would happen if she did. So, she decided to finally ask Ethan about the alien tree, and he only shrugged and responded with, "I'm not sure why it's considered so sacred. I only know what my parents and the elders of the community told me, since I was a child, that picking or eating any of the oranges from that tree is forbidden. It has not changed in the slightest through the years, and no birds perch in its branches, and squirrels refuse to make a home there." His answer only strengthened her curiosity. Lisa's face became puzzled as he turned his back to her, entering his house. She lingered on the lawn, turning to face the orange tree. Lisa began to walk towards the mysterious plant mammoth. Transfixed on the oranges, she resolved to take just one orange. One orange won't hurt anything, and there are so many. No one will even notice it's missing. She stood adjacent to the tree, directly under a plump and rather large fruit. It was this one she chose, and then reached for the seductive food, pulling it gently from its branch. Lisa looked around, nervously, to make sure she was not being watched. Darkness had fallen, and everyone was either asleep or staying inside for the night. She then brought her eyes back to the orange, its bright color calling her to take a bite, and let the juice gush into her mouth. She peeled off the skin and then bit into it. The taste was divine. She allowed the chunk of fruit to sit in her mouth before swallowing, savoring the sweetness of its essence. Seconds later, the tree and the ground around it began to turn black and withered. All the other oranges fell from the tree, black and rotted, and the orange she was holding started to bleed red. It was blood, emerging from the cursed food, and Lisa's eyes widened in horror as she let the defiled thing fall to the ground. Screams erupted from all around her. The people sounded like they were in pain, and the buildings crumbled before her. She realized too late that this tree was the life source for the village, that somehow it kept it and the people alive and tethered here in the year 2018, unchanged by time. She backed as far away from the tree as she could, watching in terror as it continued to wither into a dried up stump. She fell to her knees, feeling helpless, listening to the screams of the villagers, dying a slow death because of her. She had been responsible for destroying the one good thing to come into her life, and the only boy she had come to love. Once the screams died out, Lisa stood up, tears streaming down her face, and walked toward the stump of what used to be a beautiful tree, full of wonder, and sat upon it, crying. The rain poured hard, hiding her tears, as she now sits alone, surrounded by ruined buildings of what had been a joyous village.
I can hear the maniacal laughter growing nearer to where I chose to hide quickest.
I scanned the room, looking for another place to conceal myself from those twisted things. I found myself to be surrounded by walls coated with blood, and metal tables lining either side of the room. Across from me, my eyes met an enormous metallic door. I dare not even attempt to open the door in case some grotesque beast was trapped within. My breathing tight, and my adrenaline barely steady as I tried to calm myself enough to hastily find somewhere else to hide in this foreboding room. Their laughter increasing in volume, directly behind where I stood, hugging the wall. I let out a yes from under my breath, with my eyes blocked by the ventilation shaft above one of the tables that seemed to be wide enough to fit me. I walk, heel to toes, to make less noise. Being barefoot will also enable me to sneak to the shaft quicker without a sound. I reach the vent, and stop for a moment to gauge how close they are. The footsteps have quickened. They are now sprinting. I throw furnace out the window and rip off the grate, letting it produce a sudden creak and snap, and then a crash as I toss it to the floor below. I barely make it inside, just as those deformed animals enter the room, laughing, keeping my body hidden. I peek over the edge of the opening, ever so slightly. There are 4 of them. They have no eyes, and only 2 of them had mouths bearing long, jagged teeth and a constant smile. One of them spoke my name.
It's time for the medicine.
The Thane laughed. The others joined in the hellish merriment, and then, in unison, they looked up at me, still smiling. Damn this. I don't want to wait and see if those abominations know I've been watching them. So, my heart practically popping out of my chest, I speedily turn around and flee my pursuers, not caring what the noise my hands and knees create as I crawl deeper into the metallic tunnel. The laughing is far behind me, and my knees are screaming in agony. I cease crawling from the hell spots, steadying my breathing as I listen close to make sure I'm not being followed. I hear only the rapid pounding of my heart. Alas, I elected to continue the trek further into the ventilation system. Is there even a way out of this godforsaken place? Why am I even here? And why are these demonic beings determined to see me dead? Or worse? I let the questions linger in my mind until I came to a grate. Curious to know if this could be my potential route of escape, I approach it and peer through the cracks. On the other side I could make out a room. It seemed to be quite small, and barren, save the red and brown stains coating the floor and walls. The stench emanating from the room is horrendous, slapping me in the face as I take my first breath in it, inhaling and exhaling softly, attempting to minimize the amount of foul air entering my nostrils. My gaze falls upon a woman, huddled in a far corner of the room, within my field of vision. She looks to be near my age, with long brown hair, wearing a stained white gown, like mine, and I can barely hear her cry. She lifts her head and locks her eyes with mine, tears streaming down her face. I'm not one of them. I can get us out of here. Quietly, make your way over here and come with me, I pleaded with her, sensing a ray of hope, seeing that I can save this woman and not escape alone. Perhaps she could help me? The mysterious woman said nothing, but she began to crawl toward me, rather quickly. My face lit up. We can get out of here. Our eyes widened when we heard that laughter. Those creatures are nearing the room. You're almost there. Come on. We can still make it. My voice was now at a whisper, my tone laced with urgency. The woman was practically touching the grate before 2 of those monsters came into the room and grabbed her by the legs, screaming. What I saw next will be with me until the day I die. They dragged her to the center of the room. One held her legs and the other held her by the arms. Time seemed to slow down as I witnessed the beasts begin to gnaw at her limbs, laughing as they did this. Tears started to roll down my face while I held back a scream as the blood spattered on me and all over the room. can still hear her screaming as they feasted on her mutilated body. One of the things ripped off the leg with his bare hands and chewed with glee. I collected myself and broke my gaze from that butchery and hauled ass, making my way deeper into the thin barrier that sheltered me from that grotesqueness. My face conjured a wide smile, and I found myself laughing when I saw a light ahead of me. I found a way out, growing closer to my saving grace. Another foul stench lit my nostrils, and it took all I had to not vomit. I neared the edge, looking downward, and discovered the source of the smell. Below me lay a mountain of body bags, drenched in what could only be blood. I cringed at the thought of being on top of rotting corpses. What if this was my only salvation? Then the cadavers will break my fall. I let myself drop on top of the rotting mountain. The sounds of bones crunching and rotted flesh squishing beneath me met my ears. When I rose to my feet, my stomach dropped. A cluster of those creatures, all wearing that evil smile, surrounded the mountain and turned to look at me. I quickly scanned my surroundings, searching for a way out. The sky above was blanketed in red, with gray clouds, and I could hear howling and thunder from an unseen location. My muscles tensed as I desperately tried to find a gap in between my now encroaching captors. The devils, now mere feet from me, are laughing, brandishing syringes with needles as long as my arms. I closed off any possible escape, and I fell to my knees, knowing I was about to meet a slow, gruesome end. They all formed a half circle around me, before repeatedly stabbing my belly with those needles, and that laughing, that damned laughter. The pain, make it stop, please. I only screamed as my insides spilled on the ground, and then blackness. I stood up in my bed, my heart racing and sweat covering my body. It was only a nightmare. I let out a sigh of relief before turning on the lamp on my nightstand. I went pale, and a lump formed in my throat when I saw one of them standing over me, wielding a syringe, wearing that cursed smile.
Trapped. I am trapped within my own mind. Pleasure and agony clash, and I cry out to God. But my heart and mind desire to drink her song. My spirit warns me to turn back, Jesus telling me to run away. Lo, my spirit tries, but my mind holds it hostage. The Banshee, so beautiful yet deadly. I cry. I cry for reasons my mind knows not, while my spirit commands my mouth to plead to the Almighty for deliverance. She takes my mind, my heart, but my spirit repels the seductions of her melody. Soaring, I am soaring like an eagle. Among the earth, I feel free, delivered from the musings of the Banshee's lips, by the hand of God. Resolve. My resolve returns with a vengeance. She is dead and forgotten. My focus and will sharper than ever before. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for listening. If you did enjoy this narration, please let me know in the comments below, and make sure to like the video, hit that like button, and share it with all your friends, anyone else you know. I know it was pretty short. I do hope you enjoyed it. I have not narrated one of my poems in a long time. This one was floating in my mind for quite some time. And I do remember, to look back, my first video was me narrating my first two poems, which was rather fun. And I don't know, I've thought of maybe I might do a compilation of just a few of my poems. If you would like that, please do let me know. Otherwise,
I've been quite busy these past few days. Still, not to worry. Some of you may be itching for more of the Light Night Chronicles or the more about Ghost Eagle. Do not dismay, for I am still working on them. And I will be coming out with probably part 2 of both of them, or one of them for next weekend or during this coming week, because I have so many days off, spring break, because of Easter, whatever. Anyway, that's that. That's the whole spiel. I'm digressing. So, with that being said, if you have any stories you would like me to narrate of yours, or hell, even poems, because I do that too, please feel free to send it to me via the email I should put in the description below, or you can post it to my subreddit, which I will put it in my description below as well. And with that being said, did I forget anything? I don't think so, but I probably will, because I tend to after I get this all done. So, oh yes, disclaimer, I did write this poem. I feel I may need to emphasize this. If I don't cite it, I wrote it. Okay. So, I leave you all with the usual advice. Embrace your inner monster. Then, stare back at the beast glaring back at you in your closet, and smile at it. Smile and show it your teeth. I'll see you all out there.
Hello everybody. Before we get to the story, I would like to say some things about the microphone I'm using for this narration. This particular device has extremely good quality. It has clear sound, and the isolating background noise is quite easy, much easier. And also it is inexpensive, not hard on your wallet, easy to set up. I love that about it. All I had to do was hook up the USB in my computer, download the software, all the updates, and that's it. Ready to go. It's compactable, easy to put away and take back out. Does not hog space. I do like that. And then again, I'm going to say I love how easy it is to isolate the background noise. So I will link the microphone down below in the description if you are interested in taking a look at it. And so I would like to thank FitFine for reaching out to me and providing me with this particular device. Thank you very much to you all, and to good man Tony. Big shout out to you too. And so with that, let's move on to the story, shall we? I feel the blood shower my face as the headless body of my prey falls at my feet. This bloodlust embraces me. Am I still the good one in the war? Evildoers scream in agony when I rip their guts from their bodies. I think I'm enjoying this. I savor the kill, becoming a nightmare in the shadows, eager to drag my victim into the night. I tear at its flesh, making it regret trying to kill me. Grinning, as I spit the large chunk out onto the ground. I feel a rush, and I smile, flesh hanging and blood dripping from my mouth. I gaze into my mirror, and the thing with red eyes and sharp teeth grins back at me. Am I a good man or a monster of my nightmare?
she stalks her prey. Grass covers her. Helpless is the buffalo. There was shredding of flesh, and screams that all the land heard. The lioness revels in her victory, wearing the blood on her mouth like a mark of pride. The sky welcomes him. All the birds and beasts flee when he is out searching for his next kill. Eyes seeing far, wings carry him fast. A hawk he chooses to rend. Hawk looks back, eyes growing wide. Talons grip him. The false king falls dead in the eagle's grasp. Lioness seeks out the next victim. Hungry are her cubs. Sun is low, and the wind whispers soft tidings. Gentle are the waters. Den welcomes lioness with a warm embrace. She brings a hyena, void of life. Eager, the little lions are to feed. Master of Sky takes pleasure in the kill. Beak jabbing, talons rend, blood and entrails rain down from his tree. Night falls, beckoning his majesty to slumber. Sleep takes him a peaceful rest. Wolf prowls, nearing the cub. Lion cub cornered, growling outside, terrified within. Wolf near, closing in on helpless babe. Lioness pounces from the cover of grass. Mother and cub dying on the foul beast, howling its last. A pack far off hear the cry of a friend. Vengeance they seek, the kingdom they desire. The eagles mount the sky, sun rising. Snake slithering, nearing helpless robin babe. Cloud rider sees the vile serpent from afar. True is her strike, tight her grip. Snake trying to break free, but the mistress of the sky only drives the talons deeper. Limp becomes the creeping demon. Eagle lands on highest tree, eats of her meal with satisfaction. Evening comes, and wolves meet to counsel. Few there is of us who would aid in our quests for revenge. Vipers of many kinds enter through the rocks of the cave. Snakes carry ancient hatred for the eagles. We offer our aid to you. In return, help us vanquish the rulers of the sky. Thus an oath of bitterness and malice was forged between wolf and snake. Midday approaches. Wolf and snake alike surround the sanctuary of lions. Tall grass hides them. Rulers of the land bask in mirth. Eagle happens near, spies the lurking danger closing in on friends of the heavens. The warden of the clouds makes haste to his kingdom. The eagles gather in convocation at their grand fortress. Sun sets. Snake and wolf creeping slowly. Night has fallen. We cannot delay any longer. The king of the eagles rallies brood. To battle they take. Flight, for the rulers need aid. Lion's den enveloped by evil. Full of merriment the lords and ladies of land are still, ignorant of coming slaughter. Snake and wolf grow eager for blood and vengeance. The rulers of sky and land have an old alliance, a pact made at the dawn of creation. Both just honor borders, and help must come quickly. Wolf and snake, enemies of ancient times, both seek to overthrow the guardians of balance. Eagles loom over the rebels, and focused fury fuels them. Swift and silent they came upon wolf and snake alike, blood flowing, talons ripping, teeth biting but low. Snakes and wolves scream a dying pain. The eagles, though few in number, speed and cunning were they ever greater. The lions run out of their den, hearing cries of pain and rending of flesh. Lion and lioness look and see wolves and snakes fall dead. Rulers of land and sky slay enemies of old. Sun rises, an eagle and lion cheer victory. Land and sky, balance is restored.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for listening. I do hope you all enjoyed it. I had a great amount of fun in putting this together. I figured this video was a perfect way to close out this year and go into 2019 to see and reflect upon where I came from as a creator to where I am now. By the way, I apologize for not having a title for the last poem. It was my first epic poem called The Rules of Land and Sky. That one was great, more fun. That's what it's called. I apologize again. I did it for collaboration on my dear friend Madam Raven's video for 1,000 subscriber special. I think 100 subscriber special. One of those. Go check that out. That was a lot of fun. Shout out to her, great friend of mine. Anyway, I thank you all so much for your support and for patience, sticking around. Your continued support with my work. It does mean so much to me. And I have so many things in store for next year. So, I shall see you all in the dark corners of the shadows. Farewell.